everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here today. My name is Julie Menzies, and I'm the Director of NREN Cybersecurity Services at Canary. So I know that I speak on behalf of all of my co-presenters today when I say that we're really excited to have you here and that you've joined us to learn more about the National Cybersecurity Assessment, or the NCA, as we tend to refer to it. So the NCA is the most recently funded initiative, which is offered through Canary's Cybersecurity Initiatives program. And the service was developed and will be delivered as a collaborative effort between the provincial, territorial, and federal partners in the NREN. So on that note, I'm joined here today by some of my Canary and NREN colleagues. So we have here Peter Wallenius, who is the Vice President of Cybersecurity Programs and Services at Canary. Curtis Blaze, who is the Shared CISO for Cybera, which is Alberta's partner in the NREN. Chad Collar, who is the President and CEO of SRNet, which is Saskatchewan's partner in the NREN. So before we get started today, just a few quick housekeeping notes. So briefly, the webinar is going to be recorded, including all voice interactions, and will be posted on the Canary YouTube page for future reference. There is going to be time at the end of the presentation for Q&A, but please do not hesitate to ask questions as we go through the presentation. You can use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. So with that, I'm going to pass you over to Peter, who's going to talk a little bit about the Cybersecurity Initiatives Program.
Thanks, Julie. Good afternoon, folks, or good morning, depending on where you're attending from across the country. And to echo Julie, thank you for attending. And we thought it would be valuable to start today's session with just a refresher on the Cybersecurity Initiatives Program and how the NCA fits in with that. The NCA is now, I believe, the fifth initiative funded under the CIP program since it was launched in 2020. The program's intent is to identify and fund opportunities to strengthen the collective cybersecurity capabilities of participating organizations and the system, the research and education system as a whole across the country. As such, it relies heavily on the input of participating organizations across the community to identify challenges which help us identify services and initiatives that will contribute to our objectives with the CIP program. Next, please. And when we think about what we're trying to achieve as a system, the goals for the Cybersecurity Initiatives Program since the outset in the launch in 2020 were to align the sector in coming together and working collaboratively around a coordinated national approach to solving our collective problems, to increase our capabilities in the system, whether that's technologies, process, or people, and build out the capacity to support faster initiative adoption and more timely and sustainable results, which is really improving that cybersecurity posture or capabilities. And finally, in line with that, being able to measure the impact of any individual initiative that we would undertake, which helps us demonstrate to our funders the value of this collaborative action in the CIP program in general, and it supports the streamlining of future initiatives and helps us continue to deliver value to our collective funding partners, whether they're provincial, territorial, or federal governments, as in Canary's case. Next, please. So it really is about, at the heart of this collaborative process is really leveraging the collaborative nature of the sector to work to identify our challenges, to assess in order of priority what we need to focus on, what are the current priorities the sector sees, with a view to recognizing at a systematic level that we need to mitigate risk at each layer, whether it's locally in an institution, within the research and education network and connected resources, or in the development and delivery of national services. A key element of what we do is building on existing initiatives. All initiatives are intended to be complementary and additive to one another. And that's certainly how we approach moving forward with the CIP. And ultimately, the vision is as stated on this slide, a more secure Canada. And that's obviously an ongoing, very high level challenge. We will always continue to strive to be as possible in achieving that collective vision, recognizing there's always work to do, and we may never reach the vision, but that's the value of a strong vision statement, is it's aspirational and continues to guide what we do. Next, please. Since we launched in November of 2020, 95% of the eligible research and education organizations, we call them eligible organizations or EOs, you may hear that term from time to time, have enrolled in the CIP and are benefiting from at least one of the funded initiatives. We'll talk a little bit later about the initiatives and the uptake of the various ones. So that is currently 201 Canadian universities, colleges, polytechnics, CEGEPs, and research facilities. The number of EOs continues to evolve, so we'll continue to evaluate the criteria for identifying eligible organizations, but we continue to widen the tent and continue to strive to have all eligible organizations able to participate in the CIP program and take advantage of any of the initiatives. Next, please. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the NCA is the fifth initiative, and I'll hand it over to my colleagues to talk more about it. But since November 2020, when we launched the program, we've implemented the CIRA DNS firewall product, the CANSOC threat feed. We've continued the intrusion detection system program, which many of you may have known previously as the Joint Security Project, and are rolling out most recently the CUCIO benchmarking program. So all of these, as I mentioned earlier, we look at them as a set of complementary initiatives meant to collectively strengthen the organization's cybersecurity and ultimately to contribute to our vision of a more secure sector and a more secure Canada. And with that, I will turn it over to Curtis to talk about the NCA.
Thanks, Peter. As Peter noted, my name is Curtis Blaze, and I'm the shared CISO for Cyberra and the tech lead for the NCA. Now, Chad will talk about most of these items in more detail shortly, but just to get us warmed up, a few highlights of the service are as follows. Next slide, please. The foundation of the NCA comes from the National Institute for Standards and Technology's Cybersecurity Framework, or NIST CSF. The power of a nationally consistent, annually available assessment means that not only will we be able to understand today's security posture, but as Peter noted, plan, organize, collaborate, and focus on areas of concern, and eventually look backwards and see where we've been and how far we've come. The service is web-based and is offered on a commercial governance, risk, and compliance platform, which will help streamline the self-assessment process itself. The questions have been carefully curated out of a broad list of controls to help ensure that we get the best results with minimal disruption to the participants. And the answers focus on a behavioral maturity model, which will help unearth latent areas of risk. The service is delivered by the provincial, territorial, and federal NREN partners, and support comes from a collaborative group of experts that span these NREN partner organizations. Next slide, please. A little more about the NIST CSF. Estimates indicate that somewhere between 30 and 50% of North American organizations are leveraging NIST CSF to improve their cybersecurity posture, and the Canadian government also lists the NIST CSF on its path towards enterprise security. NIST CSF includes 5 functional areas of logically similar cybersecurity controls. Assessing within this framework allows for a clear view of the maturity of each function, exposing cybersecurity gaps that may exist. Leveraging a common framework also comes with the benefit of having a common taxonomy to describe cybersecurity and all the components as we collaborate through the gaps and mitigations. Lastly, Results from a NIST CSF assessment can help in building the case for resources to undertake cybersecurity initiatives and aid in prioritizing in a surgical manner so that those scarce resources can be applied in areas where the most risk has been identified. I'll now turn it over to Chad, who will dig deeper into the opportunities that exist for eligible organizations. Chad, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chad Collar. I'm President and CEO of SRNet, and we are happy to be part of the network of partners delivering this service to Canada's research and education community. I wanted to talk for a brief minute about the opportunities, the value that's present for eligible organizations in participating in this assessment service, and to talk about it at a few different levels. Primarily, the value is at the individual institutional level, or that's certainly the lens that we've used to start building up the assessment. And by participating, you will get back a comprehensive view of your institution's security posture, and you'll get a better, clearer understanding of your current level of risk. And because that view will be through a consistent lens, the NIST cybersecurity framework that's going to be used nationally across the R&E community, it helps you understand your capabilities and your maturity and your gaps relative to your peer organizations. Your individual report will come with some fairly extensive guidance on where to consider making investments for maximizing impact and support the creation or the evolution of your cybersecurity program. And lastly, as Curtis alluded to, because the assessment will run on an annual basis and use a consistent questionnaire from year to year, you'll be able to use it to keep track of your progress over time and sort of reflect back on your cybersecurity journey and where you've come from and where you're at now. Next slide. In addition to the value directly to you as a participating organization, you'll also receive value at the provincial and territorial aggregation level. Doing this using a common framework and a common survey or assessment platform will allow your NREN partner to help build a unified view of the sector within the region. And that will help contribute to setting priorities for investment and development of services that might exist within your region to serve the research and education community. And almost as importantly, it helps build or continue to grow a trusted community of practice across the sector. At the national level, you'll see the same types of benefits, but now aggregated one level up. We will now get a Canada-wide coast-to-coast view of the sector, which again, it enables the development of new services to help raise maturity and close gaps that are commonly found across the sector. And it'll be based on data, on evidence and demonstrated need. It will help back over time measure that progress and see what practices and investments have had the most impact as we go from year to year, developing and delivering new services. And I'm told that demonstrating sector-wide cooperation is quite an important lever in terms of making funding requests. I know within our province, it certainly is, and I understand at the national level, it is as well. So as with all of these initiatives, demonstrating that the sector does collaborate and does pull in a common direction when it comes to cybersecurity is very helpful when it comes to receiving additional funding to expand the services available. And lastly, it promotes, by doing this nationally, it promotes equitable access to a service that's right-sized. We have quite a diversity of institutions and eligible organizations in terms of size and scope and character. And this ensures that the service will be suitable for all in that big spectrum. So a bit more about the questionnaire. As you know, it is aligned with the NIST cybersecurity framework, and quite a bit of work has been done by Curtis and some of his colleagues in terms of curating down to a set of 240 questions that map quite nicely to those 5 core functions and give you a good level of detail under each of them. It is hosted on Align, the commercial governance, risk, and compliance platform that we chose through a fairly rigorous process, and it provides very intuitive navigation. It has a fully bilingual interface. The questionnaire has been fully made bilingual as well. And it has quite a robust ability to delegate questions to subject matter experts. Because the 240 questions span a pretty wide domain, you will likely need more than one person participating at your organization to be able to complete the questionnaire. And Align gives you quite a seamless support in terms of picking subsets of the questionnaire to delegate off to those within your organization that might help complete it. And most importantly, it's customized to the research and education sector in Canada. So the curation process was quite thoughtful about the needs of the sector and what challenges and threats face the sector. And so it is quite a well-aligned questionnaire when it comes to meeting your needs. It's important, talking about the questionnaire and the ability to delegate, that as you opt to participate, you carefully think about who will be the questionnaire owner. The platform has that concept. And the questionnaire owner is the person who is ultimately accountable for completing the questionnaire and making sure that it's done accurately on behalf of the institution. And so we would suggest, if you have a Chief Information Security Officer, that is an appropriate questionnaire owner. If you don't, your CIO may be the appropriate owner. It would be good to have someone who's got an in-depth understanding of the organization's, not just their IT environment, but also who the personnel are with various roles and responsibilities for risk management and security, what your large-scale business continuity plans are, and what your current cybersecurity measures are. As we mentioned, delegation is quite easy to use within the tool. So if the questionnaire owner isn't the one who would actually provide the answers, but is more the one who is accountable for the completion, they can easily separate out sections of the questionnaire and onboard participants who will have their own account and be able to see that portion and answer. Or you can opt to coordinate that internally and just have one person key in all the answers. But in terms of the owner, it's quite important to select someone who's got a fairly senior level of responsibility and a fairly wide view of the institution. In terms of how the service functions, Peter and Curtis both mentioned that it is supported by your NREN partner and a national service team. I'm quite excited about this. It's the first cybersecurity service that the NREN partners have come together to offer to the community. And we think that national service team approach is delivering a number of key benefits. It will ensure that all of you receive the same level of quality and guidance support as you complete the assessment, and that your deliverables will be at the same level. The service will coordinate consistent response times. It will ensure that reporting and templates are common across every province and territory and each eligible organization that participates. It's allowing us to deliver the service in a fully bilingual fashion, regardless of which province you're in. So if you are an English institution in Quebec, not a problem. If you are a French institution outside of Quebec, no problem. That extends to all the training and reporting as well, both fully supporting Canada's official languages. And it allows us to deliver right-sized support. As I mentioned, the community is made up of quite a wide variety of organization sizes and types, and we want to make sure that from the largest research university down to the smallest college or cégep or an individual research lab, you've got the support that you need to be successful in completing this assessment. And in terms of what that team will actually do, those staff distributed across the NREN partners will work together as a team to administer the assessment on an annual basis. They will provide individual support as needed, whether that's through email or other methods. They will deliver training, and we've started some of the training already this week, and it will be offered on a recurring basis. So they will be the ones that you see their faces at the training sessions. They will, once the assessment is complete, they'll prepare and deliver your individual reports, and they'll be the ones that work on aggregating the data up at a regional level and a national level to complement your report with that context of where you fit relative to your peers. I'll pass it back over to Julie now to talk about the sign-up process.
Perfect. Thanks, Chad. So I hope that you're all interested in signing up for this service now. If you've already participated in one of the CIP initiatives that Peter spoke about earlier, then you're already enrolled in the CIP program. And all you need to do is to go to the web address that's on the screen and fill out an application form to participate in the NCA. If you have never participated in one of the CIP initiatives to date, your first step would be to contact your NREN partner to confirm your eligibility. And then if you're eligible, you're going to sign, they're going to walk you through the process of signing an OCCA, so an Organization Cybersecurity Collaboration Agreement with Canary. And then you would go through the regular step of applying to the NCA. Next slide. All right, so just as it's important to select the right questionnaire owner, it's also important to select the right person who's going to fill out the application form. Because in the application form, there is an appropriate use policy that must be agreed to prior to the submission. So you have to have somebody that's filling out the form that is legally able to bind the organization and its employees to that appropriate use policy. You can in the application form name that person or yourself if you're filling it out as the questionnaire owner, but you can also delegate somebody else to be the questionnaire owner in there. Next slide. All right, so what happens after you sign up for the NCA? So once you've completed the application form, you are going to receive, or the questionnaire owner is going to receive, an email inviting them to approximately an hour and a half welcome to the NCA training session. Just as Chad mentioned, we hosted our first one of these yesterday, and we are going to be hosting them weekly moving forward in both English and in French. So these are intended for the questionnaire owner or the organization, but you're more than welcome to have more than one person attend the session to get that kind of background information. We're going to be covering details about NIST and about the Align platform, etc. So if you are planning on delegating different questions to different personnel within your organization, it might be beneficial to have them attend as well. After you've completed this training session, the questionnaire owner is going to receive an invitation inviting them to the Align platform. We're going to go through that process with them at the Getting Started session, so they'll be able to log in seamlessly to the platform and start the questionnaire. And then after the questionnaire is submitted, they're going to receive a report that's personalized for your organization. So this isn't a report that's automatically generated by the tool. The team that I think everybody on this call has spoken about, the National Service team, is going to be the one that's going to create these personalized reports for your organization that are going to go over the top risks and strengths and potential gaps that you may have, as well as recommendations in terms of your investments moving forward. You're also going to receive a second report that's going to include all of the aggregate information that's going to show you kind of your posture compared to your colleagues, your peers in your region. And that's based on the Global Complexity Index, which Curtis spoke about earlier. Next slide. All right. So there is going to be a lot of support that's available to you as you complete the assessment. So that really starts with that Getting Started session. That's going to provide you some really important information. And then we're also going to be hosting questionnaire deep dives. And these are likely going to start at the beginning of November. And they're going to run every week. They're about an hour and a half sessions where the team is going to walk you through different subsections of the assessment to give you a deep dive into the questionnaire and the questions themselves, to be able to answer any questions you may have, to kind of walk you step by step through the assessment. Now, those are not mandatory to attend, but they are available if your questionnaire owner or any delegatees do feel that they want to attend these sessions. We're also providing some self-guided training. So once your questionnaire owner has attended that Getting Started session, they'll be provided with a link to a support page that's going to contain videos. It's going to be a resource library for user guides and for FAQs about the service. And then, of course, there is going to be support available from the national team. So there's a support email address that's going to be provided to all of the questionnaire owners, and you're able to send any support requests you have to the team members. There's going to be a lead analyst that's going to be assigned for your organization to support you with any questions that you may have throughout this process. And I think that's it. So now I'd love to open up the floor to any questions that you may have for any one of us on the call. We're just waiting to see if there's any questions that come in from the crowd. Well, there does not seem to be any questions as of yet. We'll keep our, oh, look, is there a deadline for registration is the question. No, well, yes. So the deadline for the registration has not been set, but it's likely going to be a week or two prior to the deadline date, because we want to make sure that you have enough time to be able to complete the assessment. So the deadline for submission of the assessment is going to be December 23rd. And we're going to close registration probably a week or two before that deadline date. How often would you do this evaluation is the next question. So the plan is to offer this assessment on an annual basis so that you'll be able to see kind of progression over time and year over year analysis of kind of the cybersecurity posture of your organization. So we're going to have an assessment period that's going to be open annually. So the assessment period for this year is going to close December 23rd, and then there will be communication when the next assessment period opens. Just give it another moment or two. Do you have an estimated time to complete the assessment? I think this is probably a question that's best answered by Curtis.
Hey there. Thanks for the question, Dan. It's a bit challenging to answer. There's 240 of them, so it depends. I've had folks in kind of a pilot manner, able to do it in a few days. But it really depends on the right people getting the question, sort of understanding it, being able to answer it. If they have the knowledge to do that, if there's a lot of delegation and people are away, things like that. I think we estimated, I'm trying to think back because it was a while ago when we kind of estimated how much time in total. It was, at the most, somewhere between 8 and 10 hours, depending on how, often you spent doing it. So really kind of a full day plus a little bit if that's all you were doing.
I'll add to that, Curtis, that this is an excellent platform in terms of how it guides you through answering the questions. Those of you who have done assessments before where each of the questions just presents you like a 5 or a 7-point scale to respond to, you spend a lot of time trying to interpret, well, am I a 4 or a 5 or a 3, and what does that mean? This is not like that. This is I guess, context-sensitive answers for each question, and they will explain in plain text what picking level 1, 2, 3, 4 means, so that you can almost self-guide through completing the assessment without having to do a lot of that hemming and hawing about, is it a 3 or is it a 4? So that doesn't really speak to how long it takes, but it is a much easier to complete process, I would say, than a purely numeric assessment. There was another question, Curtis, maybe that you're good to answer, that talks about mapping the controls to ISO 27001.
You bet. Thanks, anonymous attendee. That's a great name. I bet you got a lot of friends, relatives. Absolutely. Well, it's part of the reason why this platform, when we went through the RFP process, I was also one of the people involved, stuck out. Crosswalking between the different assessments is something I've had to do in other platforms, and it's not an easy thing. This has a very good, well-designed mechanism. They radiate out from the controls. So they have a common set of controls, and they map controls out to different frameworks, which makes it much easier to crosswalk between them. So I've actually done this with a few folks where they did fullness assessments, a little bigger than the 240 we did. Then we also did like a COBIT version, and I forget, there was 1 or 2 others. And essentially what happens is it'll take the answers you have from the exact same controls, bring them over with those, and then you answer, if there's more, you answer the 40 or 50 or 60 or whatever it is more, and now you have a full assessment for COBIT or the like. So yes, it has that capability. Now, just doing the assessment, we're not necessarily doing that at the moment, but it certainly has the capability going forward.
I think that was one of the reasons we chose this particular platform. It certainly was it opened up future possibilities, being able to crosswalk other frameworks, as well as to potentially add other questions in the future. Right? We know that you are being surveyed to death in some ways about cybersecurity. You complete questionnaires every year for PCI compliance. You complete questionnaires for your provincial auditor, perhaps. You complete a questionnaire for your insurance carrier. And so we chose a platform that provides the possibility over time to expand the questionnaire set to incorporate more frameworks and to maybe collaborate with other groups that are asking similar overlapping questions to try and reduce the number of total surveys that you get in your mailbox every year.
Peter, a good question about mitigation. So the service does not include, a hands-on config and the like on devices. However, if you're familiar with the NIST CSF and the 108 subcategories, they get pretty granular. And so the report itself is actually going to make recommendations in the lowest maturity areas. We also have developed this rather interesting heat map approach to being able to show you, the whole spectrum, and in a way that provides almost a roadmap-like view. Quite a bit of work went on in the background on that, and but as far as actually hands-on helping mitigate items, no. In the report, we'll talk specifically about things and maybe recommendations directly on very specific items that you may want to consider. I think Peter maybe want to have a say there too.
Yeah, thanks, Curtis. Maybe just to add in, no direct immediate mitigation support, but as we've talked about, the intent is to identify gaps and opportunities for future initiatives, which presumably will support mitigation efforts, just not in an immediate fashion. But that's certainly the intent of the service.
Yeah, just to sort of comment on your last sort of comment, Peter, it's the essence is that the recommendations will be like, hey, here's what you need to kind of do, and kind of in a prioritized order too. I always get that question whenever you have risks. Where do I start? And so this is, we think, has created kind of a unique way to help you with that process.
Maybe just a final comment to that, Curtis, is one of the intents, as Chad spoke about, to identify either regionally or nationally common gaps as identified by NIST, allows us to design future initiatives, which gives you the opportunity through participating to have your voice in direction in how the CIP evolves over time.
Great. We'll just give it another moment or two to see if any other questions come in. All right, well, there don't seem to be any other questions. But if you do think of any after the call, we're most certainly happy to answer any questions you may have. You can send them to the email address on your screen, which is cip@canary.ca. And we will be happy to guide you through the application process or answer any questions that you may have about the NCA specifically. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We're very excited to work with you on this initiative, and we certainly hope to see your application forms coming in. We'll be in touch.